But of course, the enemy likes to attack us as children when we're vulnerable. And he used divorce to basically enter well, let me say, interrupt my life. And so I started bonding with children. I felt like that we had something in common. And those children was also into like partying and smoking weed and drinking. And I found myself doing the same things. And I was looking out of a window one day and I was just like, my life is destroyed. Like I destroyed my life.
Mm.
How did I get here? Like I can't get it right. And God just had me looking out the bars of the window, and I remember Him telling me, "I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you mightily, and you're going to come back. I'm going to use you to help the same type of people that you're here with."
Well, welcome to Heart podcast, where every story holds the power to inspire and uplift. Well, today I am thrilled to introduce to you guys our special guest, Miss Treya Cook, joining us today. I am so excited to have her. Well, Treya Cook is the full package, okay? She is a wife, a mother, entrepreneur, and so much more. So her accomplishments and passions include realtor, investor, she's a businesswoman, purpose coach, a brand manager, guys. She is a strategist, a prophetess, a speaker, and she's also a fitness enthusiast, lover of home party decor. She is the whole full package, and she's here to share a powerful story. You want to stay and hear her powerful story? Well, we are so honored to have you among us, Treya. Welcome to our podcast. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Cindy. I'm amazing. Thank you for the introduction. Yes, all is well. I thank God to be here on the Heart to Heart podcast.
Awesome, awesome. Like I said, you are the full package, okay? You are busy out there doing it for the Lord, doing it for your family. Well, despite everything you went through, you are still standing strong. You are still
Mm.
standing strong. And, you know, I'd like to give you an opportunity to share a little bit about yourself, maybe, where you grew up, your upbringing, your background, so that our audience can get a better sense of who you are.
Awesome. Yes. Thank you. So, I grew up pretty much in Maryland. I am born and raised in Maryland. I come from a two-parent household, predominantly up into my preteens, about 10 or 11. I am what you would call a church kid, a church girl. I grew up in Christianity. I grew up as a believer. Even as a young child, I was very much understanding and believing that Jesus was real. I just always had that connection. I do come from a background where my grandmom was a pastor, so faith was no stranger to me and my family. And my parents, they were in our still Christians, and they were in ministry growing up. So we stayed in the church. We were always in the church. For me, my upbringing should have been, just the same way. But of course, the enemy likes to attack
That's right.
us as children when we're vulnerable. And he used divorce to basically enter well, let me say, interrupt my life,
Mm,
uh,
mm,
and open up doors where rejection set in. And he used a divorce to like pretty much make me question my identity,
mm,
and make me feel like I was not loved, or almost like an orphan type
mm,
spirit, because a part of the divorce came about a truth where I ended up finding out that I was not my father's biological daughter. And at that point in my life, I was always looking. I think I decided to look for my biological father and find out more about myself. It hurt to know that. And the divorce was really bitter.
mm,
Um, but it led me to wanting to find out a little bit more about myself, and made me start questioning, things that normal people would think, like, do you have a grandma, do you have brothers and sisters, do you have, um, like, what else don't I know about me?
mm,
What else was a lie, or what is a lie what else do you have to tell me about my life that I never knew? And so for
mm,
me, it put a wedge in my heart,
mm.
because I was wondering, like, what guy didn't want to raise me and I never met, you
Wow.
know? So you're out there, you're alive, but you just never wanted to be a part of my life. So it made me feel bad. And, all of these things started happening. And it was around the time where my self esteem and my self worth and things like that was really, um, I think it was hindered. I was about 11 and 12, and,
Mm,
you're in that grade school and you're trying to fit in and find yourself. The divorce ended up, we had the option to move either with either parent, because I was actually like, well, my stepdad, he got all the children, but because I was not his, I had the right to choose. So I went and I moved with my mom. And when I moved with my mom, my thought process was, I'm going to go and bond with her. We're going to get to know each other, and I'm going to be there for her because this is a hard time.
mm,
And it didn't happen that way. It didn't happen that way because I don't, as a child, I didn't know what that pain was like. And so here I am thinking, and I'm looking you know, to connect, but it was a relationship she had that I think ultimately ended the relationship with my stepdad. So it was like another relationship just gone straight in. So there was no real room for me.
yeah.
And it led me to just finding friends and finding relationships to try to figure out who I was and where I wanted to go. And so I started bonding with children. I felt like that we had something in common. And those children was also into, like, partying and smoking weed and drinking. And I found myself doing the same things. Now, I did grow up and I had accepted the Lord around 10 years old. So it was funny how as soon as I accepted the Lord at 10, it was like the next year the divorce happened. And then it was like
Wow.
downhill from there. So I felt like it was an attack against my purity. Because one of the major things that I always honored about, my relationship with God was honoring my body, and not having sex until marriage. So that was one of the things that, like, I was going to hold on to my virginity. And because I went this route, it just really took a toll on me, where I was with the wrong people doing the wrong thing. I was opening up myself to drug addiction, through marijuana, being intoxicated around 14 and 15. I started to get into things that I normally would not have ever thought I would be in, because I grew up knowing the Lord and knowing better. But the pain of that breakup and that divorce and that just being out there on my own, it was almost like I had no one to watch over me, anymore, and hold me accountable to Christian values. And my faith is all I had. But because I wasn't connected and poured into, I was kind of like, I had to grow up fast.
Wow.
Um,
Treya,
and so, yes, ma'am.
just I'd like to ask a question, if I may. So you said something that kind of got my attention. You said you felt like there was no room for you between like your mother and you in that relationship. So did you find yourself? Did you have a sense of like you wanted to be accepted, or you wanted to belong, or you know I'm just trying to think what was going on in your mind for you to find trying to find relationships outside of the relationship that was there for you.
Yeah. So it really wasn't any relationship there, to be honest. Like I left and I did expect to build something because
Mm,
even when we were in the house all together and it was a family, it really was not your typical connection anyway.
mm,
So I was hoping to have that mother daughter thing. And I know that um, she had multiple children. So having multiple children now of my own, I have two. So understanding that I have to love both of them, but then they both have different personalities. And so finding time. So having four kids from her perspective, maybe one of us or two of us, or maybe, I don't know, all of us may have gotten a little bit of her. And so it just wasn't, I felt like she was dealing with her own pain in the relationship, that she didn't
mm,
really have anything at the end of the day to really connect on. And so it was kind of like I was used to that. But I was hoping that by me going with her to live with her, I would definitely get to know her and get to connect more and we can do things. But it wasn't room, in my opinion. Or maybe she just didn't know.
mm.
Um, you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, I'm like, I don't blame her or hold her to that, but my reality is my reality. It just wasn't there. And so it's almost like I'm interested in connecting though. I'm there and I'm hoping that it can be something. But I ended up like connecting more with other people who did have the capacity to love on another person's child or just connect, because I would call other parents mom, like there I would call them mom. I still do to today, because I believe that, we pick our family here on earth, but then God sends us people. And so he covered me in so many different ways by having people who didn't know me love
Mm,
on me and cover me. So for me, it wasn't that I was seeking, but I wasn't. Sometimes it wasn't that I was seeking. It was just him and his grace covering me, period.
mm,
Like, even though I didn't even know what I was asking for or longing for. For me, when it came to a mom, that wasn't as bad as I was yearning for a dad. I
mm,
had a father wound that was out of this world. And because my heart was broken with the whole divorce and finding out I'm not that person's biological child, it made me want to think about who I belong to really. And I knew he loved me enough to raise another person's child. That was commendable. I appreciate him to today. But the point is, like, when I wanted to know my dad, it was like, oh, that was disrespectful. Why would you want to know someone who didn't love you? And it was like double hit. It was like a double hit to me. And so it led me to just wanting to be fathered, wanting to be loved by a male. It went from wanting to be fathered to wanting to be in a relationship with a man, period, to just have a male figure in my life. It was perverted. My desire to be a daughter was perverted. And so I found myself in relationships that was very, very abusive and every way abusive. And so I had no father, because it was like me and my stepfather, we disconnected totally. I met my biological dad one time and I had saw him out, and I found him. My grandfather at the time knew exactly who he was, so like my whole family knew this news, and I didn't. But I'm grateful that when I went and said, "Hey, I know, can you help me to find him?" He did help me to find him. We met up one time, but then he never showed back up for our second meeting. I asked him for lunch. Could we meet up for lunch? I'll pay for it. And he stood me up. So it was like just a heartbreak again, and just feeling rejected over and over again. So I really couldn't call my stepdad anymore. I couldn't call my biological dad. I couldn't call anybody. So I think I felt this sense of, I got to take care of myself. It's me or nothing. Like if I can't do it, then nothing could. And so the fact that I needed God was kind of like out the window. It was more like survive. Like for real,
Wow.
like survival mode.
Oh,
I remember, I had a job, but I needed to feed myself and money wasn't there. I would have to go to the store. I was still, and like I would do anything to literally survive. Um, and I would get into things, do some things that I got away with, but then, my mom just couldn't handle the fact that I was sneaking out the house. I was partying. My grades was plummeting. My teachers were saying, "You're not going to ever graduate." It was just so many people speaking death over me.
oh,
I ended up going to a group home, and she dropped me off, and was like, "Can you just take her, please?" Like, and I remember that feeling like, wait, I'm already separated from my siblings. It's already been a divorce, but like now I'm here. I'm being put in a place where I don't know anyone. And this is painful because I don't belong here. All I needed was love, but now I'm being thrown away, almost like, give I'm giving you to whoever can handle you. And the people was telling me there that this place was for people, children who was product of the state. And
oh,
I ended up being a product of the state because outside of that, I just started doing whatever, like whatever we thought of to survive, we did. We got caught, and I ended up being arrested over and over. And it was like juvenile detention center over and over again, from staying for 30 days to staying to 90 days, and then staying for 2 years. And so the rumor was Trez is going to be a complete like wreck, and she's going to be a jailbird. She's probably going to have a bunch of children. She'll never be anything. That was the word concerning me because of what people were seeing me spiral. But the
mm,
same people that were saying these things actually had a part in making sure that I was going to grow up and be in a good place. But because the fracture happened,
mm,
that's when the open doors came for me. And again, I don't blame them, but I'm thanking God because he saw me, and he understood me, and he came and rescued me. But even before the rescuing, just going back, and sealing this part, I ended up in juvenile detention center, getting in and out. And I went back and I finished school because in the juvenile detention center, God spoke to me. And I was looking out of a window one day, and I was just like, my life is destroyed. Like, I destroyed my life.
mm,
How did I get here? Like, I can't get it right. And God just had me looking out the bars of the window, and I remember him telling me, I'm going to use you. I'm going to use you mightily, and you're going to come back. I'm going to use you to help the same type of people that you're here with, because that juvenile detention center that I was in had a section for girls and had a section for boys. So
mm,
it wasn't just it was a population of both sexes, but yet we were separated. Um, but he said he was going to use me, and I was like, how are you going to use me? I'm here. I'm like, I can't even see my next year. I can't even see my tomorrow. If it's going to look like this, like forget it. You know, I couldn't see where I am now. I couldn't even fathom it.
Mm.
Um, but I got out and I had that hope, right? I had that hope with that encounter. And God would just every now and then speak to me. And and I ended up getting into drug dealing because I needed money and I needed money fast. And I wasn't getting it with the 9 to 5. And I started to do that. And then I got involved with a person who was also a drug dealer, but on a whole different scale.
If you enjoy our contents, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date with our latest releases. Turn on the notification bell. Have a story to tell? We'd love to hear it. Reach out to us at cindybingham.com or connect with us on Instagram. Now, back to the show.
And me getting with this person was really like me. I was kind of connecting with him because of my need and the way I liked him, but it was almost like, oh, and you come with this. And so it was like I was accepting him in this relationship, knowing that I had things that I needed to accomplish. And it was like, to me, that greed or that need for this type of lifestyle superseded any red flags that I seen. Um, or any reservations that I knew that this wasn't really a good fit. Um, that was out the window because of what he provided. And so I think, it was kind of like I turned, like, I just said, forget it. I'm going in. I'm going all the way with this relationship. I know it's not right. I felt it, but I ignored the signs. And like a year into the relationship, the relationship just started to get really abusive and controlling. It started off controlling, then it went into full on abuse. And the first time, it happened, I forgave because it was like, oh, that had to be a mistake. Like, I don't know this person to be this way, but like the alcoholism just started to be more frequent. And I began to be like his punching bag or
Ooh.
his, just his release, his way of relief. And I really feel that when I was in that relationship, I was connected to a person with demons, and our demons connected because of what we were both involved in. And we had so many different experiences where I know the hand of God. It was only the hand of God that saved me, and I'm alive today because of it. Um, and I remember getting pregnant, uh, and I was going to keep it. The plan was to keep the baby, but I was being abused while being pregnant. And so I was like, I couldn't imagine me having the baby and then the baby seeing me be abused, or the baby might be in danger. So, he was talking me into getting this abortion. So I decided to say yes. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. I remember it was past the time in Maryland where you can have a legal divorce. I mean, I'm sorry, not divorce, but a abortion.
Mm.
And we went out of state to get the abortion. And so this abortion was actually illegal in Maryland, but legal in this other state.
Mm.
And I remember getting this abortion. It cost a lot of money.
Mm.
And I felt so bad because in the place, people were just like treating me like I was trash.
Mm.
Like I can kind of hear, like they gave me a sedation, but I can kind of hear the conversations around me. I was in so much pain when I came to, and it was like as quick as I came to, they were shoving me out the door.
Wow.
And I'm not saying this to like feel like I deserved some type of special treatment in that moment, but I'm saying this to say that when we are willing to throw away a life, These
Mm,
people who do this for a living do not care about you and your life at all. Like, and whatever the motive is, or for this, of course, it's satanic. Um, but whatever the motive is for those doctors to even practice, they definitely are in it for their own, reason, and they don't care about you at all and your safety. Like, they pushed me out the door, and I remember one of the nurses, I can feel that she cared for me and she knew that this wasn't right. And I heard the doctor like yelling at her for saying, like, speaking up for me, like, she can't move, like, she can't move. And he was like, put her in a wheelchair and get her out of here. And I just was like, wow. And I went back into this whole relationship that was toxic and deadly. And I'm already leaving feeling like nothing.
mm,
I gave away a baby and I feel like absolute trash. Like, they did not make me, I didn't feel better. So, like, you're talking about compound interest of rejection. Um, and now is rejection, shame. I was condemning myself. Like, I just felt so far away from God. Um, and this guy just separated me from my family. Like, it was like I had no relationships. It was no way that I can even, I felt so ashamed that I was being beaten, because I was not that girl. I was always the one that, like, nobody would ever put their hands on me. Like, I was the tomboy that always fought. Like, I was that person that was tough, and people looked up to me in that way. Like, but here I am, my strength is being taken from me
mm.
and every form. Um, and I had no father, right, to call on. And so that for me was just replaying. Nobody loves you. I was hearing the enemy's words like, nobody cares for you. You're going to just die. I remember the guy taking me to, I don't know where we were, but he had me walk down a hill, and it was like water. It was like a lake. It was a house, on my right, and it was just dark. And he told me, like, get on your knees. And I got on my knees, and he pulled out a gun, and his gun would not go off. And I remember feeling like, I prayed and I said, God, like, I don't want to die this way. Like, I don't even know how I got here. Like, my whole life was like flashing before my eyes. Like, everything that happened when it was good, then everything that happened when it breached, when the separation happened, then every choice I made, every decision I made, every friend I had that took me farther away from him, and every decision that I had made to take me farther away from him. I just saw it in that moment, and I was just like, but I love you. And if this is going to be it, then I pray, like, you forgive me. And in that moment, he tried to click the gun, but it didn't go off. And then he laughed like, girl, I wasn't going to kill you down here. And I was just on my knees crying. I didn't even beg for my life, because at the end of the day, at that moment, I was so broken. I was so broken. I had nothing. It was almost like everything I did have, he controlled. He controlled it. He fed it to me. He gave me enough money. Like, it was like I gave all the power to him. And I know it wasn't him. It wasn't flesh and blood, but it was the devil
My God.
himself. Like, I remember the eyes. I could see the demonic. I would jump out of cars on my way home because I was just being beaten. I would just jump out of the car no matter where I was, and I would just figure it out. I had so many nights like that were chaotic, that I didn't even, it was like, beg you for what? Like, if I got to keep living this life over and over every day, forget it.
Mm,
And one day, I got out of it because it just came to a head where I just, the whole saying, if you tell, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill your family. At that point, when he took me to the woods, I didn't care about him killing me anymore.
Mm.
Like I was just like, I'm not afraid of you anymore. Like I started trying to go to church every now and then and get my strength, get prayer, get anything. And, I would go and nobody would even know. It was nobody that could even discern. Nobody nobody picked up on it. And I just was like, man, this is crazy. Like I because at that point I was scared to tell anybody.
Right.
And I remember the guy would come to the church to find me, and I would be in the midst of like a crowded sanctuary full of people, and he would walk boldly down the aisle, back up, down the aisle, back up, and God would cover me and he would not see me. He did that a couple of times and he did not find me, and they escorted him out. That was the only time I think that somebody may have known that they were looking for me, but the deacons never told anybody about it. But that was the only time that I think that somebody may have known that I was dealing with like a really, really, really toxic person. And we got out of that relationship by, I reached out to my mom one day and I just was like, hey, this person is putting their hands on me. They've been doing it and I just need help. Like, and she came over and called the police. They met me at the apartment and that I was living in. And I was, I had the strength enough to say, yes, he did do this to me. Cause he was looking at me like, you know what I'm going to do. And I was just like, no, he did it. He's always done it. But even then, the police knew him.
Hmm.
They knew him because the police barrack was right where he used to sell drugs, and he knew everybody, and he would give money to everybody, and they treated him like they were homies.
Hmm.
And they were like, I'm sorry, apologizing to him that they even had to lock him up. That's the type of power that he had. So he got arrested. And from that point forward, he would not put his hands on me, but he came to find me again. But I was done. And I started to get my strength to just deny this relationship. And I believe God was like calling me closer to Him. So I was getting my strength back. I was going to church again and I was trying to, just figure out my identity. And so I went off on vacation and I decided to, okay, this is going to be my new beginning. I'm going to go on vacation, just kind of like release that and start my life afresh. And when I went on vacation, I ended up meeting someone. And this was like a couple of months later. It wasn't like immediately, but it was almost like 3 months, 4 months later. And I was like, okay, during those 3 or 4 months, I was sitting with God and He was showing me, like, this is how you got here. This is what you did to choose. Like, this is what got you here in this relationship. Because my goal was to never be abused again.
Hmm.
But my goal wasn't to never, at this point, never even be with a man in this way again. But at least he was teaching me how to walk right. But at this point, I still wasn't all the way sold out in my faith. So I met this guy on vacation, and it was like I bought the ticket. My friends were going. I bought the ticket the day before everybody was going, so it was almost like fate, in my opinion. And then he had the same experience where he wasn't going, but then he ended up going. So I felt like, oh, this is like destiny. He was like, yeah, I bought my ticket the day before too, and I wasn't supposed to go. And it was like we had so much in common, and I was like, oh my god, he is so like nice and professional. And I was just like, okay, we gonna see. I was like, we're not gonna do anything here, but if you want to, when we get back home, if it's meant to be, we'll keep being together. And we literally met back home and stayed together. And I had already had abortions at that point, but then I got me and him was just partying at home. We was just so inseparable, in my opinion. And then he and I got pregnant, and my escape from that sin was abortion. And so it
Mm.
was like, what are we gonna do? Oh, it was abortion. And down, it was like year 2 or 3, and then year 4 or 5, we had gotten we were talk I kept talking about marriage. I wanted to be with God. I wanted to follow God. I wanted to have a marriage finally. And I was like, hey, why don't you go to church with me? And he would go just to satisfy me, shut me up. But um I ended up getting pregnant again. And
Mm.
at this point, I'm tired of asking for marriage, and I'm tired of going to church by myself and feeling like I'm on my own. But I ended up getting pregnant again. And this time it was like, what are you going to do?
Mm.
And I was like, what am I like? I thought we were going to, because he was kind of telling me, like, yeah, I'll marry you. I'm just trying to get the ring. And it was like baiting me to keep just staying in this regular relationship. So I figured that out. Like, you're not going to ever marry me. And it's cool. But I felt that when he found out I was pregnant again, and I'm thinking, you're getting me a ring. I'm like, why do you want me to have another abortion again? Like, why are we here again when you said you love me? You said you want to be with me forever. Why am I throwing another baby away? And that's when I knew, like, yeah, this is not going anywhere. And God, when he asked me, what am I going to do? It was like I was on my own. I'm in a relationship, but it solidified the fact that I was by myself.
Mm.
And so, what are you going to do? And I was like, wow. And God said, don't you abort this child.
Woo.
And I was like, but he doesn't want me. He doesn't want the baby. Like, I don't want to be a single mom. I'm scared that, like, a broken home. I'm from a broken home. I don't want my child. Like, I was just like making all of these excuses with God. And he said, if you have an abortion, you will die. And I remembered the one that I had where it was past the time. And I don't know what happened on that operating table. I have no idea. But I remembered how painful it was to heal after that. And God just reminded me of it. And he
Mm.
was showing me, I gave you grace then. I'm not going to give you grace this time. And I was like, okay. So I had to go to him and say, I'm not going to abort this baby. And then it was like anger, making excuses. Well, I'm not going to be there. I'm never, like, I work too much. You're not going to, you already don't see me now. You're definitely not, trying to scare me into having an abortion. And I said, well, listen, I don't care whether you leave me, whether you're not there. I'm not having this baby for you, obviously. Like, but I can't keep running. I remember saying that, and that was just like the words that changed everything, because I admitted that I can't keep running. I was running from myself. I was running from my purpose, my calling, my healing, because God can use the pain to push out your purpose if you can trust him with it. Like, and I didn't trust anybody. Like, I didn't know how to trust. I remember once I told him that I was having the baby. We broke up like 3 months. We had, at that moment, we broke up, truthfully, but we were still acting like we were together. It was kind of like he would come when he wants. I felt it was already dead, a dead relationship, but he stuck around until my son was like 3 months old. And that's when I gave him the ultimatum to, like, leave or be with us. Follow Christ, be with me. We do it right, or you got to go. And he did. He chose to leave. and he told me, like, I don't believe in Jesus, like, and I was like heartbroken, like, I thought you did. And I never asked him though. I said, do you believe in God? He said, yeah. But I never said, is Jesus your Lord? And for me, I want the listeners to know, you have to ask, is Jesus your Lord? Because there's many religions that believe that Jesus existed, but they don't believe in the power
My God.
therein, and they don't believe in the resurrection,
Hmm.
um, and the ascension, like the fact that he's now seated at the right hand of the Father, forever
Mm,
making intercession for us. They don't believe in the power of God. They don't believe in that part. They just believe he was just a man. And for me, that was like a gem that God gave me to
mm.
share with the world. You can't just say, oh, we both believe in God, we're equally yoked. No, we're not. If you don't believe that Jesus came and he died and he
Yes.
rose from the dead,
Mm.
that's a red flag. That's a red flag. And I didn't find out until it was over, and it broke my heart because I really wanted that relationship to work, but I wanted it to work because I just didn't want the failure. I didn't want
Mm.
the father fracture was always in my head about another person leaving, it not working out again, he walking out again. Like, it was just that replay when he left. It was as if God was like, he started training me and healing me and just walking me through deliverance. Like, I have spent many days on the floor curled up in a fetal position, weeping in the shower, literally curled up in the shower, because I wanted to be healed, but I didn't even know how it was good. Like, how do you heal? How do you repair me? Like, somebody
Yeah.
who all of these mistakes and all of this baggage and all of this shame and all of these, um, re- I want to say repetitive cycles. The power of God, the love of God
Mm.
will sew you back together. The love of God will make the mosaic the most beautiful picture if you trust Him. And He knew I really wanted to be a wife, and I never wanted to have sex before marriage. Like, in my heart as a child, I said, oh, I love that idea of keeping yourself to marriage. And that got perverted. Um, and God gave it back to me. He said, from here on, I dedicated my son in the womb. I gave him back to God. And I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do this, how you going to do this, but I'm going to trust you. And he said, if you leave this man, I'm going to give you everything you ever wanted in this whole idea of marriage. I'm going to show you what it really means, what I meant for marriage. And so I did. I started walking with God, and I had my son, and I stopped wanting that relationship with his father because I wanted the perfect family, and I wanted us to work because I didn't want us to fail. The fear of failure, or a broken home, was gone, and I was dependent on God, not man.
Woo.
Um, and so I watched how God, because I didn't know, my fear was, how am I going to provide for my son? But God used his father to literally cover me. I was an entrepreneur up until the time he left. God came to me in a vision of the night. Like, a couple of months later, I had my son. 3 months in, we broke up. Around the ninth month of my son's birth, God gave me my first business in my dream. And the angel of the Lord came to me and said, I want to tell you about Christian culture. And I was like, I heard him. I got up immediately, wrote it down, looked it up, because I was like, if it don't exist, then I know it was you. It
Mm.
didn't exist. And God would speak to me all the time, but I was learning to trust his voice. I didn't know I was a prophetess. I was always in the supernatural, attracted to the supernatural, always watched Sid Roth. Um, it's supernatural. I would watch the 900 Club, like, I think it was called 700 Club, 900. I forget what
700.
it's called.
Yeah.
But you know what I'm talking about.
700
I
club.
will
Yeah.
always watch that stuff because I believed in the supernatural. Angels used to come to me all the time and just minister to me. Like, just, I mean, just minister to my soul and my spirit. And I used to ask God, why haven't you come to visit me in a while? Like, that's when I knew I went too far. And I started to ask him for those again. And he would come to me in my dream, tell me about this business and that business, how to do it. And so I started to implement it right away. And I was working that, but I still didn't have enough. He used my son's father to literally take care of the biggest bill I had. Even though he did not like me, he hated me at that time.
Mm.
Um, and he was like, yeah, I don't know what his thought process was, but I know he hated me because I gave him the ultimatum and I was bold about it. But he used him to just continuously at least keep a roof over me and my son's head while I walked the walk of faith.
My God.
And I was like, wow. Then the Lord told me, he said, in my dream, he was like, I want you to pray the Jabez prayer. And at this point, I had never even read my Bible on my own at home because I wasn't taught that. Like, I would go to church and get Bible study, I would get preached to. And so it wasn't like a relationship. And God was like, I want you to pray the prayer of Jabez. And I want you to
Mm.
know that this is what I want to do in your life. And I was like, Jabez. So I woke up, never heard of Jabez. I Googled Jabez. And Jabez, there was a Jabez prayer. Lord,
Wow.
would you bless me indeed, enlarge my territory, and so on and so forth. And I started weeping like, what? Like, and that's when I was like, okay, you're talking to me. You are literally encountering me. I have to listen. And so he started training me in the prophetic. He started like teaching me when it's something that he tells me that I shouldn't repeat. I should pray about everything. Um, just to trust me with people's pain, but be able to be utilized for whatever deliverance, like whatever. A prophetic word will change your life, and an encounter with God will change your life and give hope
Mm.
to the non-believer, like, or the believer, but it's specifically like to let people know God knows you. And so it was so profound that he led me to doing business. I met a young lady who is still my dear friend and sister to today. And she had a boutique and wanted the things that I created in her store. And so we started doing business, but I didn't know her father was a pastor. And her father, like the day I went into her shop, by the way, my son and I was together, and my husband came in, my now husband came into that shop, and my son ran to him and was like
Oh,
pulling things off the shelf. And so he had to like, hey, can I pick him up and like help him put it back up? And I had no idea. But she kept inviting me to the church, inviting me. Hey, you got to come to the church. You got to come to our church. And I was just like, I was praying about a church, but I wanted it to be the church that God was going to get the glory out of my life, train me up and things like this. But her church, I said, where's your church, right? And she was like, it's in the back. It's right here in the back of here. And I was like, in the back of your boutique? And I was just like, that can't be. Like, I'm not going to that church. Like, I'm used to a big, like, not big, but like, it was a bigger church. So I was like, I'm not going to no, like, hallway type of church.
storefront church.
I was like, no, thank you, sweetie. I love you. I just can't. Like, I'm not going to do that. But one day she invited me, and I did not have no excuse. I had no excuses for her. So I was like, okay, I'll show up. But I prayed. I said, God, if this is the church that you want me to go to, and me and my son be raised in, and we start this new journey with you. I said, let me encounter you here. As
Mm.
soon as I walked in the door, because first of all, I thought it was through her hallway, but it was like connected, but there was a storefront entrance that
Mm.
I never saw before until I said yes to go. And so I was like, oh, this is not like I thought. It was in the hallway or something. And as soon as I walked through the door, I was encountered. I could feel the presence of God like
Wow.
I never experienced before. And I could just feel the love of God. And the woman of God was up holding the microphone and exhorting, and she was a prophetess. And I saw myself in the future through
Mm.
this little frame. And but yet she was mighty. And I'm like, oh my God. And God said, this is home. This is where I want you to plant yourself. And it was called Rehoboth. And Rehoboth means God has made room for you. And it was so prophetic how God, and like everybody was telling me, no, don't go to a different church. Like stay here. Like I was being talked out of moving. But
Mm.
God had such a plan because my husband belonged to that church.
Ooh.
He was like like right hand, like the son of the pastor, and it was just so prophetic how I stayed in that church. I never seen my husband. I had dedicated myself to the Lord, and I said I will never have sex again until marriage. I wasn't dating. I didn't want to like. I didn't want to give up my phone number. I wasn't going to entertain anything in regards to the opposite sex or a relationship at all, except honing my relationship with God. That was my main focus. And like a year into me being in there, like my husband and I had started to like cross paths a lot more, where I used to just go and get the audio from the music sound ministry. That was the limited encounters that we had together. Thank
Mm.
you for my CD, sir. All right, bye. Like, but come to find out, he had already built a relationship with my son. And like, so I would be there worshiping, doing praise and worship, and everybody would have my son. So my son was like the little smallest baby. So, people with the elders would have him, and he'll end up in the back with the music. And so they had their little relationship being forged. And make a long story short, we ended up going to going on a date unofficially because nobody else could go, and we were the only ones at the church from the youth ministry that was available to go because everybody else had other things to do. And he was just like, well, do you want to hang out even if it's just us? And I was like, yeah, no, but he was so nice, Cindy. He was so nice that I couldn't say no. I would feel bad, and I just ended up going anyway. But I was like, listen, I can't. We were supposed to all go bowling, but I can't bowl in real life. Like I go for the social part. I'll be the one on the sideline, and so we ended up going. Not going bowling. We went to see a movie,
Mm.
and I was so uncomfortable the whole time. My husband is literally laughing, coming over on my seat, tapping me like, and I'm like, "Oh my God, no! Don't touch me!" Like, because
You
I
had a
didn't.
wall.
I was like, "You stay in your seat, I stay in my seat. I want to walk right." I was just like, "Don't!" But he was so free, and to be honest, like totally transparent, I seen the scriptures
Mm.
being fulfilled on how Christ loves the church and gave himself. Like I could feel the scriptures being revealed to me while I was with him in every way. I'm talking about how it was a puddle of water and he like lifted me over it to get me into the car safely, or he
Mm.
opened the door for me. Like he was just everything was Christ. Like he was just like doing what Christ said. And I didn't even really know these scriptures at the time. Like I'm new to this whole like manifestation. But then he would show me that night the scripture. he will show me with him. I felt the love of God, and I felt the comfort. I felt the covering. I felt all of these things, but then he'll show me in scripture. And I'm like, that's what I, that's what happened with me. And the love is patient, love is kind, love, and all of these things, I will see it fulfilled in my relationship with this guy. And lo and behold, you know, he did propose to me, and we ended up being walking. So my goal was like, whoever comes into my life, they have to agree with this purity walk that God had
Right.
me on. And
Mm.
so I remember I went out on a date with him. He took, like, that was the unofficial date, where nobody else was able to go. So he then asked for my number to make sure my son got home safe. And because I had to pick him up from the sitter, so I had to give him my number, although I didn't want to. But he was like, "Can I take you out again?" And like, it's an official date, and so we did. And I was like, at that dinner or lunch, it was. I said, "Hey, you know, I'm walking with the Lord, and I'm waiting for my husband, and I just wanted to make it clear that, like, I don't want to have sex. Like, I want to do it different. I want to do it right, so I can get a better result."
Mm.
And
My God.
and I remember him eating his steak. He was like cutting the steak, and he heard me, and then he looked up and said, "Cool, because I'm a deacon and I don't want anybody tempting me. Like, so that's perfect." And then he went back to eating, and I was like, "Hold up, wait,
What
wait a
kind of
minute."
man are you?
I was like, "Wait a minute, did you hear me? Like, I'm not having sex at all." And I didn't, even though I knew God called me to this, I didn't think it was possible because I never seen it, and I never really, I believed it, but I didn't think it was going to happen like that fast.
Mm.
But what happened before him, it was a couple of other guys that came to like the apartment I was in, and I was at the time, and I was renting from a landlord. And like, it was different moments where men might have already had my number, and so they was like, "Hey, can I text you? Can I call you later?" And I was just like, he seemed like a nice guy, sure. And then I told him, "Hey, I'm waiting on the Lord for my husband. I'm not having sex. So if you want to take me out, it's not going to be that type of thing." And he literally was like, "Oh no." He was like, "Mm-mm. Well, it was nice to meet you. Because that's not what I'm looking for. I guess we'll never know." And I was like, "Never know what?" He was like, "How it is to make love." And I was like, "Make love? We just met. You don't
Mm.
even know me. You don't even love me. Like, we don't love each other." And I just was, when I experienced that, I felt broken again a little bit. And I was like, "Man, I'm waiting on you, Lord." And here this guy come. He seemed like a nice guy. And then he told me no, and God said, "This is what I wanted you to see, that if you don't have a standard, people will take what you are, like, what you're willing to give them, and they
Right.
don't care about marriage, and they don't care about honoring me. And so don't feel bad." He took that rejection that was trying to take root on my heart again. He was like, "I didn't give you that. So no." Because I was starting to feel like maybe this walk isn't going to get me the result I want. And I
Mm.
was like, that rejection came again, and that hurt because I was like, this guy seems so genuine. And I was like, but he wants the same thing everybody else do. Everybody's like this, Lord. And he was like, "No, I take that lie away. I'm taking that away from you. Keep walking."
Mm.
And so when my husband said, "Okay, cool," I was just like, "Say what? Hey, wait a minute. Wait. So we really gonna do this? Like, you're with it?" And he was like, "Yeah, like, I want to do it too." And I was like, "Wow."
Praise God.
And I
Mm.
was, Cindy, I was ready to pay for my meal and get up out of there and just be like, "Well, brother, I love you as a brother in Christ now, and we're good."
See you
But
at church.
see you at church Sunday. I ain't even gonna tell nobody that you rough, you crazy. But he and I ended up being together all the way to 2 years. We literally was like a month before our 2 year journey of walking together in purity, and we're now married and walking in purpose. And I mean, he makes me so better. Like, to
Mm.
me, um, he was willing to be my friend when I was when we were engaged, and I was trying to make every excuse why, because God was still healing me, and I was like, I was afraid of marriage because I was like, ooh, divorce. I seen that. I seen a broken home, and I'm like, you love my son, you love me, and this is what I prayed for. But what if we don't work, or what if something happened? And I'm trying to talk myself out of it. That was the enemy trying to plague me with fear. But I took like almost 6 months to like just ask him, can we slow down? Like,
Wow.
can we? I felt like God wanted to keep working on me, and during that process, He was right there. Like, can I just be your friend?
Mm,
And I could go on and on, but it was so spiritual, what God was doing with us. And when I tell you, when we got married, the way He loved me allowed me to love other people. If that, like,
yeah.
it
Mm,
just opened me up. It was like every barrier around my heart just came down for people, and I began to love people like crazy. Like, and then all of a sudden, the Lord just had me thrusted in ministry, like the prophetic, even what I'm doing now, coaching, like catering, serving people, bringing them back into a place with, in relationship with God and their purpose, so that they can really see their life thriving. And it's such a joy to trust your life in the hands of God, the potter, and we're the clay, and him being able to mold us and take what was thrown away and making something so
beautiful.
beautiful. Um, it's remarkable, Cindy.
Oh my goodness, Treya. Oh, wow.
It's
So
remarkable.
powerful. I mean, you just, as you were speaking, I'm just, you know, it keeps ringing in my head. God is the God of restoration. Like,
Yeah.
He is the God of restoration. Just to see how God orchestrated everything, and how things ended for you so
Mm-hmm.
beautifully.
Yeah.
God already knew it. He knows the beginning from the end from the beginning.
Oh, yes.
And, and just the moment you started trusting Him and you said, I'm
Yeah.
going to walk with God, and just things just started turning around for you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, this is so powerful. So powerful. Treya, I want to give you an opportunity to speak to somebody.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
People will be watching, people will be listening, watching this testimony. And I really believe that um, there is somebody out there facing challenges, similar to those that you endured, the one
Mm-hmm.
that you went through. Perhaps they're struggling with drugs or struggling with alcohol, or you know relationships are falling apart, um, feeling hopeless. What would
Mm-hmm.
you tell that person? What word of encouragement can you encourage this person in this moment with?
So, Cindy, you had just said something that was very key. God is the God of restoration. And when you think about the word restoration, it's to restore something back to its original condition.
Mm,
But the thing about God is, He will not only restore you back to your original condition, but He'll make you better than you were before. And so it makes the restoration more valuable. You'll become more valuable. As I'm thinking about an antique, something that looked old, used,
mm,
trash. And when you have something that was already valuable, but God renews it and restores it, you're actually going to be put back in your rightful position, but then you're going to be more valuable. You're going to be worth even more. You think of an antique. We are like that when God transforms us and He makes us new. And that's what brings the value, because He is that type of craftsman. He's that
mm.
type of carpenter that what he touches, it is so much more valuable and pure and holy. Holiness is what we need, is what we're missing, and
Mm,
it connects us to God. So I want to encourage someone that's listening to trust God with your brokenness,
mm,
trust God with your mistakes and your shame, because in Him there is therefore no condemnation to those that are in Christ. And if you're not in Christ, you're in crisis. And so it's no need to continue the cycle of crisis when He is the answer. You just have to trust Him with it. And believe me, people will judge you, but God
mm.
is the judge, but He's not judging you where you are right now. He's not. He's actually standing there wide, arms wide open, ready to take you back. And I promise you, if you trust Him with the brokenness, He's going to make something so far more better than your expectation. Because, scripture, I could go on and on. Scripture says that He would do exceedingly abundantly above all we can ask, think, or imagine. We got to just trust Him. He's the author, He is the finisher, and the perfecter of our faith.
Mm.
And so, who better? Who
Right.
better to give yourself over to? You can't go wrong with Jesus. That right there is my period.
Woo. I love it. You can't go wrong with Jesus. I
You
mean,
can.
oh my God, your story is without a doubt a source of hope.
Yeah.
It will be a source of hope for many. And I
Yeah.
want to thank you today, Treya, for willing to stop by. I know you're busy, right? But you were willing to come on the Heart to Heart podcast and share your powerful story. So I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
and congratulations for what you are doing, in the kingdom, the part that you're playing. And trust me, nothing I have going on is more valuable than sharing the testimony, because we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. And this right here is just helping me to continue to overcome as I build. It's like Nehemiah, he had a sword in the hand and a hammer in the other. So I could work and testify. I'm building a wall for the
That's
enemy
right.
to not be able to come in. So I'm gonna keep testifying. Thank you for the work that you're doing to allow us to be able to flow in this way. Thank you for your obedience, and even connecting. You're blessed, and I just pray continuous blessings over you and your family, and the work that you're doing for the kingdom.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you, my sis.